Okay, folks, I think we have a full house, so we'll start, if that's okay. He tells me he wants that light. I would prefer you turn it off, but we seem to need it. Can you see that all right? Yeah. It's not a training session, so you don't have to see every detail, but if you can actually make out the outline of it, that's all I'll be referring to. You're very welcome, and thank you very much. My name is Seamus Ryan. My background, I feel very comfortable in this room here because it's a geography room, and I'm a geography teacher for many, many years. And I left teaching back in the early 90s and worked in the computer industry, came back into teaching, worked as a geography teacher for a short while, became a deputy principal, a principal, and later education officer with County Meath VEC from 2006 until 2007 to 2012. And I left the public service at that stage, and I've worked with H2 Learning, which is John Hurley and Michael Hallisey's education consultancy business. And we have focused on helping schools in many ways. My background, I suppose, is in the implementation of technology at different levels. First of all, at the basic level of using it in the early days as we try to experiment with broadband and data projectors in classrooms and so on. And I moved on to working, as Mark O'Connor referred to today, in the development of a blueprint for what a school IT infrastructure that could be managed would look like, and eventually copying that out to what was then 9 schools in County Meath VEC and creating what was the first managed network of schools in Ireland. And as he said, it's since gone on to be added to by Louth and into another generation. What I'm talking about here today is basically the application of one of the more recent technologies that I didn't have back in Dunshaughlin Community College 10 years ago, which is the cloud, and the fact that things that we spent a lot of money and hardware and everything else in actually creating within the school 10 years ago at enormous expense can now be accessed via broadband from people like Microsoft and Google, who are willing to provide these services free to education. And the one we're talking about here is Microsoft's Office 365. So you're probably familiar with the term, and you've heard it bandied about today. And very briefly, Office 365, of course this has gone off now. I'm attempting the scary bit here today, which is a live demo. Yeah. Yes, we're back. I thought when I had that plugged in that it didn't actually go dead. But anyway, I see the reason. The socket isn't on. Isn't it marvellous when you... So, that won't happen again. So, as I said, I'm attempting a live demo. I think you've probably seen enough PowerPoint, and no reflection on PowerPoint, but I'm not a great fan of it. So I prefer to actually show you something. So basically, if I can come to something here, Office 365, very briefly, is a service, a cloud-based service, which you can access via broadband from anywhere, which provides you with the standard email, and with that, the 2 other things that go with it, which is calendaring and people, and other services such as a social networking and blogging piece. The most important, probably initially for staff and for students, access to a large free storage. In the case of teachers, it's 1 terabyte, 1,000 gigabytes in the cloud, and it's called OneDrive, or OneDrive for Business. And then this piece here, which I'll be mostly talking about, which is Microsoft have incorporated within their Office 365 service, they've incorporated a product that they've had for many years called SharePoint, which is a collaboration platform which allows people to share both documents, to interact on those documents, and to do a lot of other, what we would call 21st century learning activities. So that's the piece that we'll be talking mostly about. But just, I presume everybody's familiar with this end of it, and I think it's the place to start if you haven't already done so. And one of the initial challenges with any introduction of IT in schools is to get people initially using email. Now, it's great at the start, and it's a very good communication system for staff, but when it comes to actually bringing students on board and interacting with them, email is a disaster. So it's not to be encouraged, and it's not the way to go. But in the staff room area, in that area where people need to be kept up to speed on the routines of the school and what's going on at a certain level, it's very good, right? Now, OneDrive, on the other hand here, which is the storage, is the piece I think that all schools can benefit greatly from. And then if you're in school management or school leadership, you really have to think seriously about getting both staff and students to store all those documents from the shared folders and drives that you have in the school and get them up into the free space in the cloud. 2 reasons for that. Back in the teacher mode again. 1, reduces local infrastructure, all that storage, backup, licensing, renewals that you have to do to provide local storage. And the second one being, people can access their documents from anywhere. So you're actually providing the staff with the capacity to work on things and to continue to work from home, when otherwise they'd have to be in the staff to do it. Now, you won't be telling everybody you want to work from home, but it's the convenience of it. So very important to think that we actually take advantage of that particular part in the school context and in cost saving and convenience. But it has a big impact for learning as well, because once we've established the fact that we have a service that can provide us with this storage in the cloud, there's a lot of other things that can be done as well around collaboration and sharing of documents and the acceptance and the delivery of basic things, homework and so on. Now, so that's OneDrive. Is that okay on that? And the functionality of it is very straightforward, like Dropbox or any of the rest of them. Now, Sites here is the platform, which is the nearest thing I can describe it to is it's a school intranet. In other words, it gives you the capacity to create a private website within the school, which will do a lot more than a website. And in order to access it, you have to log in, username, email address, password. So it's within the community of your school. The people who are in the school system will be the staff and the students. And the difficulty with it, I suppose, when you just get it out of the box, and if you set yourself up on Office 365, you'll have to first of all put everybody up into the system so that their identities are known and they have an email address, they're able to log in. And the next thing is, what do you do with this piece? In other words, it's an open box. It's a little bit difficult to get to grips with it at the start, and I've been using SharePoint for 10 years when we would have had it loaded on a local server, and I've got used to it, and I know its capability, and it's been added to all the time. But in the general sense, you won't have people who will be able to just turn this on and immediately apply it in the school setting to the way that will maximise it. So in H2 Learning, what we have done is we've put together a little template for how the school can apply that particular part of Office 365, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So the first thing is, a thing that would be a basic to this, I suppose, is that you start with the staff, and you've given them their email addresses, and you create a collaborative area in which they work, and they are the only ones that are on that particular part of this intranet, right? And with that, you're actually giving them what I would call an online staff room, a virtual staff room. I have a school here called St. Osnam's. I suppose, can anybody tell me why that school could never exist? Good quiz question, this. So Frederick Osnam hasn't been made a saint yet, the founder of the Vincent de Paul. So I have upgraded him here to our school, right? So for the purpose of this demo, we have St. Osnam's. It's a virtual staff room, but it's a starting point for the staff to actually access a variety of collaborative services which bring together a lot of the programs that are going on in schools. For example, subject planning. We can base it here. In other words, a starting point for it. Staff professional development. You have a lot of requirements for people to actually get on with the different programs and initiatives that are going on, and there's help out there for them. But they have to go and have to find them, and there's no, the PDST is one source, but there's other services, the special needs support service and so on, special educational needs, etc. So what we've done is we've created these spaces and these places where we can bring together these links, and the staff have a one-stop shop. In you go, and you actually can see it. Now, we have the school plan, which is another thing that's in documents and in files and in Word documents all over the place. Why not bring it together in one place where you can see all the different elements of it? And I'm going to show you that in a minute. SEN, it's most important that everybody is able to be on the one page in dealing with students that they have in front of them. This is a consistency in the approach, and that's what the SEN coordinator is able to communicate what is necessary. Okay? Am I at 20 or 10? 10. 10, fine. Thank you. And this area here. So it is a collaborative space. But in addition to that, you can have these other things in it. I just put RTE News headlines in here, but you can have all sorts of other education services. You can have announcements. There may be other ways to do it if you're using ePortal or VSware, and you can have a staff calendar, and you can have any number of staff calendars and so on. These are options. But the core of it is it's an area where the staff collaboration planning actually begins. So we'll take the first area, which would be subject planning. And each school has a list of subjects which are delivered to the students. And we have, in our little model, created a space for every one of those. And they are accessed through these nice little tiles here. And we'll take one of them, such as the CSPE. And so your typical subject working area has a mini website within your intranet where the CSPE teachers have a place to put that folder, that no A4 folder there is the standard A4 folder which has all the subject documents in it and is kept safely in the staff room or the principal's room, and that is usually bought out when there's a word of inspection of some sort, or it's taken out at the start of the year and revised. Now, it's not a very dynamic process if it's sitting somewhere like that. But if you can take those very documents and put them online in a subject department like this, you can actually create a dynamic process where people have access to them, where teachers who join can go in and see what's going on. And we have, as part of that, created an actual template for the plan itself. In addition to having space for documents here, that the plan is part of it. You can put whatever other documents are required, links for the teachers of CSPE. If you want to have the tasks that you're going to do during the year, you can have them there. You have a video library and so on. And there are many others that SharePoint can allow you to add, but that's the core of the ones we've done. Now, if we take it that the subject department plan, and I'll go to it here, and it's in OneNote. You've heard a lot about OneNote today. Many people will be familiar with OneNote to any great extent. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm doing a survey. 7 out of, there's 30 of us in the room, is there? Yeah, that's about it. So, a OneNote is a digital A4 folder. That's the best thing I can describe it to you. In contrast to Word, which creates pages, to Excel, which creates worksheets, to PowerPoint, which creates slides for presentations. OneNote, it's all of those things, but it organises pages into what would be, if you can visualise it, a digital A4 folder. Right? It's got the section pages, which are the coloured pieces that separate the rest, and you would write the names on the tabs here. It has the individual pages, and on any page you can have links and so on to any either text, photographs, snippets of websites, audio files, video files. There can be anything. In this case, we've adapted it to a subject plan. And if you can see the headlines along the left there, they're not very big. You can see that there's the DES guidelines, for example, which just gives us the syllabus and so on. I haven't actually added the CSPE syllabus here now. Subjects and policies. This would be one I'll spend a minute at, if it comes up for me. I've pressed the button too often, I think. Okay, I do have a syllabus there. We'll go along to the next one. I would prefer to use a mouse to be able to show you where I'm clicking. I'm using a pen here, which is what they talked about in the earlier presentation. And if that pen, if I can... This is the trouble about doing it live, isn't it? we're getting places. Maybe we're not. We're back to where we started. Yes. Now, you can't see that writing, but what we've done in the template for the subject policies and procedures, we have included the titles of the pages that would be required. I sat down with a good friend of mine who's an inspector, and I asked him, if you were looking at a plan in a school, for what would you expect to find? Now this is an A+ mark plan, right? I have to add, it wouldn't be practical to think that everybody has all this. But I went through it there the other day with somebody, and they told me that they had about 60% of it already in Word documents. And some parts of it only required a paragraph or so of a statement about something. So the sort of things that you'd have in it: mission statements, subject aims, action plans, course materials, literacy and numeracy, differentiation. And you literally open the documents where they already exist, you copy them, and you just paste them in here, and the whole thing. Having it here, each member of the subject department has access to it from wherever. It's the starting point, and it's revised each year, and it's always the current version, because it's online. You don't have to be revising it and taking out pages and putting in others. And you record the details of your meetings, which are here, and you have all the other sections. So that's just to illustrate a practical application of OneNote in this case, and that would exist in each of the subject department areas. Okay? Now, I'll go back to the staff room, hopefully, if I can find it. It's here somewhere, isn't it? It's not. I actually left it the last time. But anyway, we will take you to the next, because once you have got your subject departments and your teachers seeing the benefits of planning online, I think that's the best way of putting it, the convenience of it and having it up there. The other services that I showed you there a minute ago, that's a CPD wiki, which allows you to put together areas of professional development that you have identified. It might be your planning committee or other person with responsibility, and they just pull together these areas for the staff in reference to the type of school you're in other words, to reflect the needs of the students. You might have an autism unit, you might not, all those different things. And this professional development area is available here, and it pulls together everything that you're talking about. And if you go to special needs there, for example, we'll attempt, you have links to various other professional development, help, etc. Okay, I'll go back to the staff room, and we will go to the school plan. I presume we will. Maybe we won't. Yes, we will. And you can see that the school plan again it's divided into two parts: the teaching, learning and assessment, and that includes school self-evaluation, etc., right? Inspection reports, special education needs and so on. And behind that you put all those files and documents that are already in existence, and there are copies of them there. Everybody has access to them, and for school self-evaluation, the reports that are required from each subject area as part of their rolling application of it will be put here as well, and you're creating a certain transparency about what everybody's doing. It's not locked away in files and other people's things. It's actually, you can go and see it, right? On the other side then you have policies, procedures and administration of the school, which is the school's policies list. I've highlighted the two that are mandatory for every school: positive behaviour, staff meetings, new staff induction, all of that. Behind that you can store all your documents, and you just open up those pages and you literally cut and paste, and you have the school plan in one place. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, back to that green page again then, if I can get it. Once you've got that embedded, and what would you think it would take to get that underway with the staff? A week? A month? A year? Now you're talking. In other words, you can woefully underestimate what it really takes to do this. But if we all know that the best will in the world to get everybody on board, to provide the bit of training that will be required, the reassurance and all the cajoling and the deadlines and that to get the stuff up here, it'll take probably a year. Now you'll have a few people who can fly on as maybe enthusiasts a little bit quicker, and where they can go to, and where you want everybody to go to, is you now have a parallel set of sites for every subject, but these the students see. And you're in a position to actually put up resources and other facilities that you need or want, that the subject department will want to share. Now, you notice the logic of where I'm going here. Okay? The logic of where I'm going is that you start with planning, and you start with collaboration, and then you work outwards with the department putting out its recommended shared resources. We're not going down the road immediately of giving everybody a space to work with their class on their own in their own way like we always did. Do you understand where I'm coming from here? So this is phase 2, and we have documents that we can share, and where we talked about today, we had subject notebooks, for example, that they talked about in Clare Galway that we worked with them in helping to develop. They would be in this hub, and the student would access them there. That's where they would be for each of the subjects. And the nice thing about OneNote, the way it works, is that when the subject logs in here, connects to that once and opens the OneNote on their device or on their computer at home, it will look like that. Right? In other words, it's slightly different to what I showed you in the other plan. It has the sections across the top, right? And when we're looking at the sections, let's look at what... Sorry, there now. There's what would be a page out of the online notebook, right? If you're going to the other presentation on that particular thing, you'll see these in more detail. But very briefly, each of the chapters in that has a particular format which starts off with the syllabus and so on. And this is what the student sees. But the point I want to make is, once they went to the hub, found the notebook for first year science, connected it onto their device, they didn't need to come into Office 365 again. They don't need to go into SharePoint. It is actually connected and they can open it straight off on their device. So you don't have all the clicking. And once you can avoid clicking for students, you'll actually get them to do things. Once there's not too many, right? But the first time they just need to get there. So that's another sort of way of integrating Office 365 there. Now, so that's the CSPE department. Down in the bottom here, links to classes. This is where, eventually, you will put a space for each teacher to have a place for their own class where they can interact with them. Now, I come from a school as a geography teacher where there might have been 6 first-year classes, and at times I taught 2 and 3 of them. I wouldn't want to have to be creating a site for each of those classes and putting everything into each site. I want to put the stuff that's common to all the classes up here. They can all get it. It's the stuff that we've agreed we're going to do. And I'm only going to use the class site for the Edmodo type situation, for the personalisation of learning, the giving of homework, and the acceptance of homework back. Right? And there's various ways in which we can do that. And one of the ways is that OneNote can actually create notebooks for a class which look like this. Now, OneNote allows you to create a notebook which has a collaboration space which the whole class can write in, teacher and students, a section that the teacher only can write in and can provide notes, the homework list and so on, and then a section for each of the students in the class. I have only 6 students in this, so you can have 30 students in it. The teacher sees everybody's section, but when the student looks at their notebook, they only see their own. Within each student section, and we'll go to Afric here, Afric has a homework space, an extra handout that I might want Afric to do, a homework drop box where they put their homework and they can take a photograph of their handwritten maths for last night using their phone, and they can drop it in there onto that page, and the teacher can come along with this and correct it with the pen. So we can integrate digital correction with handwritten notes. And I can have an e-portfolio where I can either instruct the student to put their work, or they can actually collect versions of the best work that they have done and accumulated over time. And you can define what these are yourself, and you can have 5 as the max, but I think that would probably cover everybody's needs. So, where did we go from this presentation? We started with talking about the Office 365 and what it did, OneDrive. We then went to look at the particular part that's available under Sites and the H2 template here for the staff area, the student hub, and then the ability to interact at a local level with one class and its teacher. And we sort of suggest, and the experience in doing this, we have about 36 schools now that use this, and they're all at varying stages, and at all stages we're always too optimistic about what we can actually achieve. And as you very rightly pointed out there, it probably takes about a year to get everybody up online, subject departments working, used to the idea that things are online, and having all the stuff that you have in your T drive or your P drive or whatever it is, getting it into the cloud. That's a job in itself, but you have to plan for it. We can advise on the way in which it works best. You can even come along and actually help individual teachers to do it, or take it on and actually do it for you. But get into the cloud. That's the important message of all this. It doesn't matter what you use. And reduce the amount of local infrastructure, servers, storage, licensing, maintenance, and all those things that you're paying for that are vulnerable to you and our risk, and get them into somebody else's servers in the cloud where it's managed for you, it's backed up. There's versions of everything that I showed you there, going back for 5 different versions. If you make a mess of something today, you can go back to 5 different versions of anything. OneNote, documents, and so on. I haven't got any more time, so sorry that if that's... And I haven't a lot of time left for questions, but if anybody wants to talk to me, I have to do this 3 times now. I'll